High School Slumber Party AP is a Cage Club podcast network production. For all things Cage Club and High School Slumber Party, head over to cageclub.me. That's cageclub.me.
Welcome, slumberers who take their studies a little more seriously. I'm Brian Rodriguez.
And I'm Aislinn Addington. And this is High School Slumber Party AP, a study session in contemporary teen films.
And your assignment today, apologies, but was to watch 2020's American Pie Presents Girls' Rules. But of course, before that, we have some homework that we discuss every week here on High School Slumber Party.
Absolutely. Checking in. Have you hit that subscribe button when you're listening to us? If you haven't, do it right now. You can find us many places. You're probably listening from Google Podcast or Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher. Hey, you could subscribe on all of them if you want.
Hey,
Wouldn't
that'd
that
be great.
Fun?
I never even thought about that. That's a really good idea. That's mandatory homework. Just even if you have different devices, find someone with the Android or the iPhone or whatever. Subscribe on all of them, please. And of course, you can check.
Grab one of your parents' cell phones.
Yes.
Subscribe. See how long it takes till they ask, what is this thing you put on my phone?
Maybe don't subscribe for this episode, but if it's your parents' phone, I'll say. If it's your phone, you're already here or whatever. But
That's true.
And of course, you can check out all the old episodes of High School Slumber Party and High School Slumber Party AP on cageclub.me, of course. And one more thing, class participation is a huge part of your grade, so follow High School Slumber Party, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Before we get into American Pie Girls' Rules, I'm curious if we had any feedback, or if you heard any feedback regarding Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. Heavy movie, heavy topics. I'm curious on your end what you heard.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Again, I'm so glad we watched it. I'm so glad we talked about it. The feedback I have heard is similar in that folks agreed that it's heavy and intense. Also agreed it's a fantastic film. I talked to a couple folks who, like me, hadn't heard of it before. And so they either listened to it and then sought it out or sought it out and then listened. But I got folks thanking us for covering it and
wow.
Making them aware of it, which is part of the whole goal, right? So
100%, yeah.
I was excited to hear that. How about you? What was the feedback you heard?
A couple people I know had been like, oh, I saw it, it's great. And some other people, a couple of friends who I'm not going to name, were just like, I'm sure it's a great movie. That sounds a little too heavy for me.
Sure.
I'm going to pass, which I get.
That's okay
which I get,
too,
yeah.
Right? I absolutely. I have listened to whole books about television programs I have no intention of watching.
That's a good call. I've done that as well.
So I get it. And I'm, grateful that they listened to the conversation and enjoyed the conversation. Ideally, right, if we hope the conversation is enjoyable, even if you hadn't sought out the film, but certainly hoping that more eyes get on that movie because it's really good and everyone in it is so fantastic. So
yeah, I'm happier with your feedback because that's great to hear that people sought out the film and watched it, because like you said, that was the intention here with the High School Slumber Party AP, because this is a film, again, if you wanted to see, but this is a film that more people should have seen. And, on that note, last time I mentioned that it did not get an Oscar nomination, unfortunately. But I did want to ask you, with the Oscars having passed, you did see some of the films, correct? I think on contenders. Were you satisfied with the overall winners and such?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say yes. Overall, I'm so glad that Emerald Fennell, I'm still not sure, was recognized for writing Promising Young Woman. That's awesome, and one of the several important jobs she had on that movie was writing it, right? So I'm glad that was recognized, and I'm certainly not going to argue with Chloe Zhao winning for Nomadland. We've covered both films on The Contenders, so you could listen to those episodes if you're interested. Such a fantastic movie. I just like lump in my throat the whole time. And in fact, a listener of ours watched Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always and Nomadland.
Wow.
Pretty close to back. So
Fun
that
night.
was an emotional day. But yeah, fantastic film, and so awesome to have a female director and a female director of color and all the things. So yes, overall, I was satisfied. I did not do my usual Oscars scenario this year. I like to watch it. I like to have my own commentary, but I don't like a lot of commentary. So like Oscar parties are not for me. And my favorite Oscars are when I get a hotel room by myself and watch the Oscars and drink champagne.
Wow, that's fancy. That's cool.
Did not do that this year. So I'm
Oh,
feeling a little disconnected from it on the whole, because typically it's a whole afternoon into evening for me.
sounds
Not
pretty
this year.
fun.
So next year.
Yes,
With
I hope you do it next year. That's me wishing the best. I don't watch the Oscars again. I'm not saying it to be a hipster. I'm all whatever. They could do their thing, but I just get too angry. I get too competitive. So, but I mean, that sounds like a fun way to enjoy it if I did watch it.
yeah, just all my commentary, all in my own head.
So speaking of Oscars, the weekly assignment that I give you specifically is to just kind of catch up on previous high school slumber party, watching stuff that would have qualified for AP but predated AP. I asked you to watch a film that ended up winning an Oscar for best. It's not foreign film anymore. It's
International.
international. Yes, best international film, and that was another round. First, Aislinn, did you do your homework? And if you did, which I assume you did, what'd you think?
Did my homework.
Yes.
I did. It was a little bit tough, I'm not going to lie. But as much as this is AP, this is also a safe space, I'm assuming. Something you may or may not know about me is I am very prone to motion sickness.
Yes. Yes.
And so I watched the first scene when it's like, it's not really slow-mo, but like revelry and people kind of running around and drinking and having a good time. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of shaky, but I bet it'll be okay. And then like the third scene is just Mads Mikkelsen and I don't remember the woman's name, but like in the bedroom, and he's just sitting there, and it was going like this. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm making a shaking motion with my hands. And so it's like, oh, this is going to be an adventure. So absolutely, yes, I watched it, and I had to occupy my brain so I didn't get sick. So I had to kind of do some things while I was watching it.
Were you able
difficult.
to? I was gonna say, were you able to?
Film.
Yeah. As soon as I recommended it, I was like, "Oh no, that movie does have moments like that." So, were you able to get through it in
Yeah,
that respect?
totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I only say that to say that there could be details that eluded me.
Especially there, again, like you mentioned, foreign film. Even me, who doesn't get motion sickness necessarily, like I'm just like reading, and
Yeah,
it's
reading,
hard
watching,
sometimes.
reading, But I 100% agree with, I think you had said, as well as some of the reviews about it, like fantastic performances. And while in parts of it, I felt like, right, because the premise is they do an experiment that if they're at 0.05 alcohol, blood alcohol, that their lives will get better, and then that sort of happens, and so then they up the ante, and then things get wild. And so it was interesting because I did kind of follow along of like, oh, that sounds strange, and I'm like, wait a second, okay, that's kind of interesting. However, because the reason it's connected here, right, is because they're teachers.
Yeah, they're teachers of
Right.
a high school. Again, very different to see like a Danish high school over an American high school.
Totally. So once like drinking and young people are involved, I get a little like, oh gosh. And as we saw, like that the theory that amount of alcohol is, can make things better, okay, but not everyone is predisposed to stay at that level. I enjoyed it. It got real in a more than I had expected, especially because I saw somewhere it was just listed as comedy.
Yeah. Oh, whoa.
Right? And then
That's
somewhere
ridiculous.
else it was like drama comedy. And so I don't know if something was cut off. But so certainly the intensity snuck up on me a little bit, as I think the alcohol did to some of the participants.
For sure. And that was a movie where, we were asking a lot of those questions as well here too, in terms of like, should they be drinking in front of kids? I know completely different drinking culture there. There's no drinking age in that country, which is crazy to think about, but not crazy for them.
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, I'm with you. So I did have to ask, because of the whole motion sickness thing, everyone really talked about this ending where Mads Mikkelsen, who apparently was a former dancer, starts dancing like crazy, and he doing his own dance moves. But for you, I imagine there was a lot of shakiness there. I don't know.
Yeah. And at that point, I would say I was sort of perhaps at the end of my brain capacity for that. However, like the stills from that are gorgeous, right? Like, I don't know. I still, I could watch enough of it to get the performance and like the heart of it. And so again, just truly outstanding performance. And I'm not, I've certainly heard the name. I've seen him in things, but I don't follow him, I think, as some folks do. And so this made me want to watch more of his work. For
sure. I mean, same with me. Like I'm like promoting him a lot because I'm like, wow, he did such a really great job in this movie. And the other stuff I've seen him, he did well, but I couldn't like rattle off all his movies off the top of my head. But yeah, good for him. And again, we mentioned last time the director's story with his daughter, who was supposed to be in the movie, passing away like 2 days into production, and him just wanting to continue it anyway. Obviously, I'm very sad for him, but also super happy for him that he was able to get that win there. So, yeah, I mean, interesting story, different story.
Very different.
Sometimes we talk about teacher films here. I don't like to dismiss the teachers because they're so important as well. But Danish teachers, this wasn't 16 Candles or anything like that. But I'm happy you were able to see it and not get too sick, hopefully.
Not good. Yeah, no, not at all. So yes, thank you for the assignment.
Well, thank you for watching again. Always great, It's important to catch up because I feel like we can enrich our own dialogue here on AP if we can refer back to some of the other more modern high school films.
Absolutely. And this could be another one that folks hadn't run across till maybe they watched the Oscars or it came through on for them on Hulu, but certainly absolutely worth checking out.
So let's get into it. Let's talk this beautiful, beautiful kind of disaster film. Well, I don't want to spoil things, but American Pie Girls Rules. So Aislinn, every week you read the streaming description, so please do. I can't wait for this one. Netflix, right?
I do. So this was on Netflix, and when I Googled Netflix just to get it to pull up, something else pulled up. So I will read what you've asked me to first, but then I want to read you the thing that came up first.
Okay.
On the Netflix website, this film is listed as 4 tight-knit high school seniors vow to turn their loved lives around by homecoming when the arrival of a new student muddles their plans.
Netflix is famous.
That's it.
Famous for just like being as minimal as possible with these descriptions.
Not only minimal in words and content, there was no punctuation in that sentence.
Oh my God.
Other than the period. I added what I thought would work. When I Googled that, what came up very first was a review from HollywoodReporter.com, the first sentence of which is, Netflix's faux feminist American Pie presents Girls Rules, plays a gender-flipped reimagining of the 1999 film, blah, 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 blah. But I did like that phrase, faux feminist, which is something that came up in my watching of this movie, of course. So I thought it was relevant. So, Brian, what is your background with the American Pie franchise?
Well, whew, glad you asked. Well, look, doing High School Slumber Party, obviously, it's a keystone film in the history of high school films. So, from a scholarship standpoint, it's really important. I don't think it's a movie, I'm talking about the first one, I don't think it's a movie that aged as well as some of the others. There's a lot of controversial things in it, but, when I was growing up, it was a big deal to watch American Pie. I probably saw it maybe middle school, like late middle school, or maybe probably the summer going into high school. Mm-hmm. And then the sequels, I saw in succession, but I'm not someone who was like a diehard American Pie. As I say it, I'm like, who is? I'm not someone who watched all the sequels and watched all the straight-to-DVD stuff. Oh, man. And then, Aislinn, right back at you. And I have to ask this because you were the one, we had a whole list of films we could talk about. And you were the one who's like, let's do it. Let's talk American Pie Girls Rules. So I need to know. I'm super curious. Not to brush off my own history with the franchise, but I'm just so eager to learn yours and I guess your reasoning for picking this.
Happy to share. I think part of it is the nostalgia, right? I think we are similar in school age that way. I was right between middle school and high school when the original came out. And that was so it's the film itself I have a nostalgic affection for. Culturally, it gave us a lot of things. Mm-hmm. I mean, the one that comes straight to mind is MILF was not a word.
Absolutely.
So, right, one of the most popular porn categories didn't exist.
For sure.
It just wasn't called
that.
Of
It
course.
wasn't called.
But so that was huge. I mean, Jennifer Coolidge, who's famously plays Stifler's mom. I was aware of her from other things, and I know that she would have had an amazing career regardless. But that was a real moment, and I feel like you could see other characters in subsequent teen movies or even just comedy movies that borrowed from the Stifler's mom. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure she was borrowed as well. But so there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot there. I agree. Has not aged well. Also, as a band camp person.
I was going to ask.
Band camp. I was not at Allison Hannigan's band camp by any means. But so there's a lot of nostalgia. Even more so, I went to this movie. It was one of those where I think there was a popular thing in the late 90s, early aughts where like it came out on Friday, but really it came out on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's true for all movies all the time. So basically I saw it before opening night.
Wow.
My brother and my best friend. I have many best friends, so my best friend Britton. And then the next day, the three of us went on an adventure to go to Lilith Fair because it was 1999.
That is so 1999. I love it.
We're from Western Montana, so it's not like we went down the street. We had to drive to another state. Like it was a road trip.
That's awesome.
Before that movie, I have stories of that movie too. So we had just seen this movie, and then someone from the soundtrack that was a local like Seattle artist was there on the third stage of Lilith Fair. And so it was like, to us, it just felt like that was all part of the trip. I don't know how to kind of describe it otherwise. It just, so for me, the movie has taken on a much stronger kind of connection to my youth. Again, now that I'm grown, now that I do, anti-violence work.
I don't mean to laugh, but
absolutely. There's a lot of things that don't stand up for me in the, franchise itself. But with, I don't know, some of the attempts at a cultural reckoning we've had with some shifts in, how young people are portrayed, I thought, okay, Girls Rules, this could be something. This could be like a sleeper, awesome, subversive thing. Now, as we'll get into it, I don't think, I think there were a couple people somewhere in the behind the scenes that have the same view I do. I think, unfortunately, those voices were not able to kind of permeate the full project. So that's a spoiler of what I think moving forward. But that is my background with American Pie.
I mean, that's great. And, doing this podcast, we just High School Slumber Party as a whole, because, American Pie, Girls Rules, not the most AP movie, but I'm so glad we're talking about it because there's a lot here. We'll get into it, especially like the deep dive. The deep dive I tried to do here was like, oh, that's why. But in terms of just the podcast overall, we talk about a lot of films that maybe don't age as well. And I do think that there's a place for them as long as, certain things are acknowledged.
Of course. We're
going to cover Porky's one day. I'm not going to be like, oh, this is awesome to everything. Right. But it's also, I'm not going to ignore it either. Like, these are like cornerstone films. Especially, for us growing up, American Pie was a thing, a huge thing. Well, not just because it spanned all these sequels. Honestly, again, as someone who's watched the first one recently, there are a lot of good nuggets in that film. Like, if that was remade today, not this way, but I'm saying if that was remade today, I think you could keep a lot of the good, fun stuff and not be like, oh, we're going to do this without this person's consent or something, like, which is one of the biggest scenes that you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, a lot of misdirects that turn out to be non-consensual. Since you have been on this teen film journey officially much longer than I have, the other thing I was about to say, but I don't know if it's true, so I want to ask you instead of just talking, instead of just talking out of my ass, I wanted to ask you, was American Pie, it feels like it kicked off kind of a rebirth of a sex comedy, teen girls comedy. You mentioned Porky's, which would have been like that, but in a previous era.
Yeah.
She's All That, Never Been Kissed. There's a lot in that late 90s, early aughts that's not that. But then, like, would we have Superbad and another example if we didn't have American Pie?
It's a really good question, and just from doing the research and watching the movies. So Scream is what kicked off the late 90s, just things blowing up in terms of teen films. Now, look, there's some great teen films in the early 90s, some great indie teen films, but that late 90s thing was kicked off by Scream. This American Pie got greenlit because of Scream.
Okay.
Once Scream does big, and they're like, oh, wait, movies about teenagers sell, which they forgot about from, like, the 80s,
Gotcha.
They said, find me all the scripts and let's greenlight everything. And by 2003, they're literally greenlighting everything. Everything. So it's turning into, like, stuff like The New Guy again. But, American Pie, yes, in a sense that, like, Scream is a horror film, obviously. And horror films come out of that, too. I Know What You Did Last Summer, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. But
American Pie basically was like, oh, the teen sex comedy still works. Mm-hmm. So, yes, you're right in a sense. Scream definitely gets the assist. But then after American Pie, it's like, let's do things like this. And unfortunately, the people who hold the rights for American Pie said, let's do things like this for 20 years.
Over and over and over. When you say that, when you bring Scream into it, that helps the context for me, for sure. Because this is AP, I'm going to take it again in a serious direction. And you don't have to use it if you don't want to, but
I'm excited.
I wonder how much the AIDS crisis impacted sex comedy in general, but even particularly, things aimed at young people. If what you're sort of explaining is that there was this kind of content, we know that there's raunchy 80s movies and that the teen stuff was a big deal. I just wonder if then there's a time period where, like, whoa, we don't know quite what's happening, but we know that there's, like, serious business that we weren't aware of previously or that we weren't worried about previously. And so timing wise, that's what I think. That's a hypothesis of mine that I'm going to look into.
You should.
And I will report back on later, because it's just coming because of your context. It came to mind. So I'm going to assign myself that homework to look at the interaction between sex romps in movies and what's going on in the real world.
You hear that, High School Slumber Party AP listeners? Iceland's even turning American Pie Girls Rule into an AP movie. So there you go. All you doubters out there, there you go.
I do have a PhD. I have to. They're going to take it away from me if I don't bring up points sometime.
Well, I think, you bring up an interesting point that I had not really thought about on this level. I kind of thought about it actually recently on more of a micro level because we just covered House Party the other day. House Party's amazing. And in House Party, me and my co-host Kirkland Shepard, we were both like, oh, so there's a scene in House Party and they don't end up having sex, but they talk about, oh, where's the condom, stuff like that. And I'm not saying it feels out of place, but it does feel out of place for like an 80s teen movie, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And we were like, oh, AIDS crisis, 1990, huge. And so you might be onto something with this lull we get in the teen sex comedy. I'm sure they were there.
In a comfort with laughing at sexual scenarios. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I will look into it.
I do want to take this time, because I don't know if I'll ever get this time on High School Slumber Party AP, to just name all the American Pie films for those of you out there. And
please, let's count what we've seen.
Exactly. I'm going to ask you what you've seen, because I'm very curious. So, in the original franchise, there are 4 films.
Oh.
Apparently there's a future one in development. Who knows?
Of course.
But let's see. Sorry, okay. There's American Pie, of course. We've both seen that.
Yep.
Have you seen American Pie 2 from 2001?
I have, and I think everyone agreed that was a disappointing venture.
American Pie 2. Okay, I've seen it as well. American Wedding 2003.
Yes, in the theater.
Wow.
I'm so sorry.
No need to apologize. It's good for context. And then 2012, American Reunion came out.
No, I have not seen American Reunion.
Think I might have on TV, but it wasn't memorable enough.
Sure.
We might cover it because we might
I'm sure TBS somewhere is always playing
it. Okay, so in terms of the spin-offs.
Yeah.
American Pie Presents Bandcamp. That was the first one that was like not in the Jason Biggs universe, if you will. You have seen that.
Absolutely. And it does not have Jason Biggs, but it does have Eugene Levy, as this is the first spinoff that doesn't.
I was going to say, like, finally he's back with Schitt's Creek, and then he's not in this film. It's like, ooh, missed opportunity.
Yes. So, again, my brother and I rented purposefully and, of sound mind, American Pie Bandcamp, because we just out of curiosity. And again, out of that, clearly there's some nostalgia there. Now, the other piece of our background with American Pie is that shortly after the franchise began is when Tobin went to film school. And it was pretty common as a assignment to like recreate something, right? And so all the students played all the roles, right? They were the director, the producer, the actors, whatever. And so of course someone did that scene, like the scene with the pie, and the Contenders co-host Tobin Addington played the Jason Biggs character in that recreation. So there is a video somewhere of that scene.
Get the video.
And I mean, I have seen it. I just don't know where it lives now. And that did lead to Tobin's nickname briefly in graduate school being Pie Fucker. I did ask just a couple minutes ago, can I tell that story on the podcast? He said, oh, hell yeah. So I wasn't sure where, but that's the other reason that there's nostalgia around the franchise. Like, I could say we are both intimately aware of the franchise.
Well, a little High School Slumber Party behind the curtain. We're 200 episodes into this show, and Tobin was actually on all the way back, episode 27, The Last Picture Show, which is one of these, like, seminal classic high school films in the genre. And of course, he shared that story. I don't know if
Oh no, so sorry. It's a repeat of the Pie Fucker
No,
story.
I've been waiting for that story to come back because one, I don't remember that his nickname was Pie Fucker for a while. So that's a fun nugget. But two, like, that's episode 27. That was in 2018. It's about time for that story to come back.
I love it.
Thank you for bringing it back. Find where the video lives, please, because it is so High School Slumber Party appropriate, and I love it.
In the meantime, I think all of us listening today, myself included, should go back and re-listen to that episode because I want to hear how he tells it. So
yeah, I'm going to do that too.
Homework everywhere.
You're not an AP unless you're expecting homework and enjoying homework. So
absolutely, very, Very true. Oh, goodness. So you have only seen the first in theaters?
I have not seen a single American Pie film in theaters. I was
Oh,
definitely DVD on TV kind of stuff. I definitely saw the first American Pie like as soon as it came out on DVD,
sure.
you know. But I haven't seen any in theaters, and I have not seen any of the spin-off sequels, like the the non-can. Okay, they're
Right.
canon, but you know what I mean.
Yes, like band camp.
Yes, the presents they're called. Yes. So was Bandcamp good? I'm just curious.
No, I don't remember. I remember us enjoying watching it, but no, it was certainly not a good film and not something I've ever watched again. And I think I love a good dumb in quotes teen movie. So like I would watch Fired Up any day. I wouldn't watch Bandcamp again, right? Because I know if I want sexy young people just being sexy young people, like I know where to go for that. And American Pie Bandcamp is not where I would go.
So a little background for me with these sequels. They used to run like the trailers before other DVDs I would buy.
Okay.
I've always loved teen films, obviously, so they would just shove them in there. And back in the day, especially when you rented things from Blockbuster, they like made you watch those trailers in the front. Like you couldn't press the skip button for whatever reason. And I remember them running this, and all the trailers were the same format. And they would run that American Pie song, like "This bed is on fire," like at the end, like, and then American Pie Bandcamp. So I remember almost all these trailers. Up until like Girls Rules, just because of that. Let's see, 2005 was Bandcamp. So the next
Okay.
year, 2006, is American Pie: The Naked Mile. Island, did you see that one?
I did not. When you say it, like the title is familiar, and I feel like I can see the poster there with Eugene Levy because at this point they're like promising you he's still going to show up. But no, I have not seen that one. I don't know if I want to say I missed it, but I'm going to say I have not seen it.
And to be fair, a lot of them, obviously the sequels of the original, I always forget what you call a 4-movie trilogy, but you know what I mean. Obviously the sequels of that don't take place in high school. A lot of these don't take place in high school. Bandcamp might, I'm not sure. The Naked Mile does not, I know that. It's college.
I want to say Bandcamp was college as well, or at least that transition summer. Like it was like we got to college early to do like marching band before
Gotcha.
the term started. Because I think that is what made us feel better about that one, that they were slightly older. But this puts us right back in high school here at Girls Rules.
Yeah, and so after Naked Mile, you get Beta House, which I know is college. Not that I saw it again. I'm assuming you didn't see it.
No,
Okay.
frat stuff, it takes a lot for me to
And then the
dive
next
in.
one was The Book of Love. Again, assuming you never saw it. To be
No,
fair.
I've never seen that. I've never heard of that.
That one I hadn't really heard of either. And that was the last one before this one, 2009. And apparently it did well in the DVD market. We'll get into that in a second. That was back to high school. Like we needed that. So Mike Elliott, the director of Girls Rule, was the lead producer on Bandcamp and The Book of Love. So when The Book of Love does well, that's where the shell of the original American Pie Presents Girls Rules was greenlit.
Gotcha.
It was supposed to come out in 2010, but whew, we will get into it. I mean, we might as well get
Oh,
into it
wow.
now.
Tell me more. What there was a decade of silence.
Well, Aislinn, everything, I don't know how much research you've done or not, but everything you've said so far, what I'm about to say to all the slumberers out there, will confirm it 100%. They had greenlit this next American Pie straight to DVD film. I'm not sure why it was in production hell. I have ideas, but I'm not sure why it was in production hell. But originally, it was written about a group of guys who were all in love with the same girl. Years pass, 10 years pass, they finally get to do it again. The same dude, Mike Elliott, who was the producer, he's the director now. And he's like, hey, we're in a new movement now. You know, part of the reason we do High School Slumber Party AP because we feel like there's been a cultural shift. So Mike Elliott decides to cultural shift the American Pie franchise here and gender swap the entire thing. And I don't know how much... Well, again, I know we're going to get into it. But I don't know how much of the script changed from what was
Sure.
originally there to what we got in the end. Some of it must have changed, right?
Yes.
But I remember the first time I watched it. So my history with this film
Yeah,
specifically.
yes, you have seen this more than once. And again,
Yes,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you, thank you, Iceland. It's that famous thing I always talk about here on AP at the end of 2020 when I watched 30-something films, teen films from 2020, just to give the slumberers a little bit of like, hey, watch this, don't watch this, or not even that, just like this is what this movie is about, more or less. That's when I saw this one. It was just in the background. I was like, oh boy. And I was with you. I was like, hey, maybe this is going to be a paradigm shift in the American Pie franchise. And I remember my notes specifically being like, all right, these, young women are acting like just kind of the dickish bros from the other franchise, or for the other films in the franchise. And then once I read that fact, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes, and no one did a lot of stretching, is what you're telling me in the background. And I do want to separate a little bit of like the folks behind it versus the actors themselves, because
Yes.
and there's a wide range in terms of believability and all that. But I don't want to. I'm much more comfortable crapping on Mike Elliott and that team than I am like these young people who it was a big deal to get an American Pie movie, right?
For sure.
Even though we're all laughing, like that's going to have millions of eyes on it. So yeah, I don't want to fault the actors for their portrayals, but some of them were given a real rough deal.
Rarely do I like to blame the actors for stuff, especially in this genre, because they're young people trying to make it in this world.
Totally.
I think anyone in any profession they really want, and you say, hey, this is a Hollywood thing and then eventually going to be on Netflix, who's going to say no? Who at between 18 and 22, you have to be really established. You have to be a Gossip Girl.
You got to be Dakota Fanning to say.
Somebody like that. Yeah, like, no thank you, I will pass. So I never really blame the actors, and I think a lot of them did the most with what they had, which was not a lot.
For sure.
And I do want to take a small little segue to just ask your opinion on just the idea of gender swapping things in film. I guess, what's your feeling on that overall?
Sure. My first thought is gender swap in itself is a problematic concept because it's reinforcing the binary of that there are boys and there are girls and that it's it and there's nothing else. And so I as a human, am comfortable with the idea that there's a continuum, a spectrum in terms of gender and sexuality, and that we're all somewhere. But number one, it's not so discrete as one bucket or the other bucket. And just because you're in one place in that continuum today doesn't mean you're going to be in that same place tomorrow. So broadly, gender swap, problematic on its face. Beyond that, I think because of the world in which most of the stories that we started to tell back in the day were about men or about men as heroes or kind of whatever. This is where you put in the lecture about like, the history of storytelling and all that kind of stuff. Like there weren't other options, right? Shakespeare, right? Men played women's parts because women couldn't be actors, all these different reasons. So I think that there is and was a place for it in order to demonstrate what like the representation of a different side of the story a little bit. So thinking about Ghostbusters, like in and of itself, was it important to have female Ghostbusters? I don't know. I didn't ever see it as a particularly gendered job, but because the only image we had of it as a culture was these men and these specific men doing it, it was revolutionary, and a lot of people got mad, which is interesting and funny. And I gosh, they must not have a lot else to worry about. And then you see young women in the costumes at the premiere, like little girls. And that, of course, little girls could always have been a Ghostbuster for Halloween, but seeing the story told gives much more permission and sort of empowerment for that to be true. And so, long story short, for the purposes of representation and expanding our understanding of kind of like where different humans belong, I can see the merits of it. However, just switching out genders, as I think we've, or sexes, or both, as we've seen here, doesn't work without additional nuance. And I'm not even just because men and women are different, which yes, we are, but also the worlds that we're coming from are different. So it's not, you can't just put someone's line in someone else's mouth, because that other human still lives in our culture where there's a lot put on them. Does that make sense? Like it's not like a universal man and universal woman. We don't live in a vacuum. So just swapping doesn't do a lot, but demonstrating what the world looks like from a different perspective, I'm all for.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you brought up Ghostbusters, because I have another kind of follow-up question that's maybe related to that. But I think it's something, this gender swap, I'm using air quotes, thing that, I don't know, happens. I think it's something that we're going to talk about here. We have a gender swapped, again, quote unquote, She's All That coming out. And there's a lot of teen films that people have discussed, like, let's see what happens if we do the other thing. And
sure.
I hope they have the nuance that you're speaking about and not just doing what this is doing. Now, later on, we ask this question every week, like, who is this movie made for? I also don't want to pretend like this was like the Ghostbusters thing, that everyone was anticipating this American Pie movie to come out. This was purely a originally straight to DVD and then
Very
straight to
good
Netflix
point.
thing. And, the bar is really low.
Yes, no, for sure. What is your take on gender swaps?
I mean, honestly, I am still someone who, I'm asking these questions because I don't have a firm take on them. And I could admit that, because I see some that I like and some that really work. And then I see this and I'm like, this just, like, things feel cheap with this. It feels like, this was a little too easy. I guess my question, not to throw it back to you, but I am going to. This is a film that is directed by a man.
Mm-hmm.
It's produced by men. The writing credits are all men. Now, when I read the interview, oh God, like this, like just saying this kind of, I don't want to say, it makes me cringe a little bit.
Yeah.
Mike Elliott said in an interview, like, he's talking about, like, the stuff, and he's talking about, like, writing it and how, he was happy to gender swap it or whatever. And he's like, some of the most raunchy things came from, like, the women on the writing team. And whatever. That aside.
Yeah.
Women on the writing team, he says, none of them are credited. Do they not exist? Or
That's
did he
a
just
great
say,
point.
yeah, let's just, like, not acknowledge them? I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure I know how you feel about this film. I'm pretty sure you know how I feel about this film. But there's a reason for these things, and it's just in these production notes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that tells you everything you need to know, right? It's like that binders full of women comment from the 2012 election.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We've got binders full of women. We'll put women in positions of power.
It feels like, it just relatedly, it feels like when people say, like, oh, I know that. I have a black friend or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, there were women here and they thought this was awesome. So just letting you know.
And there were women here and they were gross, y'all. Like, yes, because we're humans and all humans are disgusting.
Oh, man. Paul Feig directed that Ghostbusters film.
Yes.
Obviously Paul Feig identifies as a man. When you do something like this, does it need to be a director who identifies as a woman, in your opinion?
Gosh, that is a great question. And it's certainly comes up a lot. Like the larger representation conversation is in the ether, right? We was particularly thinking about from the actor's side of, is it okay for straight identified actors to play gay or trans? Or can you change the race or ethnicity of a character and play that? As we've seen, actors get in trouble for taking roles. And when that happens, I also think, yes, but there was a team behind that, right? It wasn't, as much as I'm not a Scarlett Johansson apologist, it's not as if she woke up and said, that like point, call your shot, that's what I want to do, there were other people like saying this was a good idea or saying this will be fine or convincing someone that way. So I don't think it's for me to say what like the rules of representation.
Of course.
That being said, I would argue, and I think, you know, I have another podcast that pretty much argues the importance of having women involved in telling stories about women, particularly. And again, this goes back to just because it wasn't that way for so long. You know, people get upset about feminism and other things, but today we're talking about feminism, or that, gosh, you like, it's this thing of like, are we still talking about that? And it's like, well, yeah, one, because things still are not equal. There's not parity in industries and this and that. This comes up a lot in like the sociology side of me too, and research that way, right? Can I do to research, you know, all female gymnasiums in Israel, or can a white dude really do a proper study of people of color, cab drivers of color in New York or whatever, like, and it's not that you can't, but I think you have to listen a lot. And I just don't know that the folks behind the scenes here were listening.
No, this is not a good case if you're like, yes.
This is not a good case study for that. And I did miss one of my points there, and I'm sorry, but I'm sure if it's important, we'll get to it. I felt like there were a few voices or a few moments in this movie where they were trying to do that. They were trying to subvert that, subvert the status quo of things. And yet, I would argue likely because there weren't women behind the scenes, that we know of in integral positions, we end up with just such a male perspective. And I think for me, that climaxed, if you will, in the final shot of the movie, where all four of these women are four protagonists, all having, well, 3 out of the 4 missionary position even, but like heterosexual penis and vagina, vanilla sex with men, and you see their faces, which also penetration face is a real pet peeve of mine. But like, that was the end of the movie. This Girls' Rules. That was the end of the movie. Watching the 4 of them get banged. Like, what on earth? Also, I was so excited for one of them at least to be gay or non-binary or something, right? 2020, 2021, just even statistically, this group of 4 women, and they're all so straight. No, I say no.
I think they tried to make like these, I don't like to use the word token, but yeah, there's like these token strides that they tried to take, but then you hit the nail on the head.
But there's no follow through.
No, absolutely not.
And I have examples. I don't know if we want to talk about like the characters and what they do, or if we're not quite there yet.
I don't want to forget this production note, because there's some.
Yeah, please.
There's some production notes, and then we'll get into characters. And by all means, let's hear it, because I'm super curious. Like, so I know you apologized off air. Like, I'm sorry you had to see that again. But I was actually excited, not necessarily to watch it again, but to just speak with someone else about it, because I just had this solo experience watching this film.
Hopefully not all the people like our age are watching it. Hopefully some people have other things to do.
So, as we know, 2020, it's a big deal on the show, High School Slumber Party AP, because so many of these films did not get their intended release. And yeah, we're going to talk about some great films. We have talked about some great films that probably were going to be released in the theater with big advertising budgets that just did not happen and maybe got lost. And this was supposed to be released kind of a DVD, quote unquote. I don't know who's buying DVDs like that anymore, but also just stream to rental kind of thing.
Yeah.
They realized that so many people were at home during the pandemic just watching what they could afford in streaming. And they said, let's get a deal with one of these streaming services. Netflix was interested because Netflix just loves to buy teen films. And they said, let's do it. But Netflix insisted with them. And if any of you worked on American Pie, Girls' Rules, and I have this wrong, by all means, contact the show and correct me. But Netflix decided, like, hey, if this is going to be on Netflix, easily accessible, we have to cut out a lot of what was in the film in terms of, I don't want to say called
Nudity.
Nudity, yes, nudity.
Yeah, because that was something I was gonna comment on. Even in the first scene, her underwear clearly rips in half.
Yeah, then it's
on the back of
on.
a fence.
Yeah,
and it's back on and fine. Like, which again, and I'm not, because gratuitous nudity is not like, I would complain about that too. Damn, feminists. But yes, I absolutely noticed a distinct lack of breasts in an American Pie movie.
Yes, this is the first one not to have like any kind of real nudity, and that's because of the Netflix thing. Now, Mr. Director would like you to believe, and I'm sorry if like you have a nice family who loves you. I don't mean to criticize you, but like this, but I have to. He would say in press junkets, yeah, we wanted all this male nudity, and we didn't get it because Netflix didn't allow us to do it. That's how we want to flip the gender thing. But in actuality, there was no, there's no female nudity either.
And that's been done. Like, that's right. I feel like Judd Apatow spent, and also I don't know who made the White Castle movies.
Oh, I don't know who made them, but yes, it's been there. I forgot.
You know what I mean? Like that trick of like, oh, you're complaining about breasts? How about a penis? That trick has been done, and I think most of us in the world said, cool, do you want a trophy or a cookie? Like, this is what I'm talking about when I lost my point on the representation piece a little bit, of like, just because there is no equal playing field, because we're not in a vacuum, just flip-flopping identities back and forth without then correcting for the world is not effective, and is just a puppet show. And in this case, a puppet show with no ding-dongs.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, this is the first American Pie not to have an unrated version. Like, that was kind of their marketing scheme, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I kind of hypothesized too, and maybe I'm wrong, but they also went for this Netflix deal because I really don't know anyone who's buying like, oh, I got to get that new American Pie unrated version so I could see those boobs,
Yeah,
like
the moment has passed, folks.
Yes. And I'm not even saying, because we're all woke and everyone's great. Like,
no.
Like, the proliferation of porn on the internet has kind of killed the idea of like, let me rent this tape so I could watch this scene over and over.
Yes, the thing I've heard, because I listen to so many podcasts of, so many dudes talking about, when their parents finally rented this movie, and then they, stole it from the VCR in the middle of the night and just watched the boobs part over and over again. Like, yes, but you're right. That is not the world we live in. And that's part of what I'm interested in seeing more of these contemporary teen films of like, okay, if because that's a very like cemented trope in my mind, mm-hmm. right? Like, okay, but for a 17-year-old today, that's not in their experience at all. So that's part of why I want to watch the movies, to better, okay, what is that for y'all, right? Is that a, nudes getting released? Is that, I don't know. I don't even have the language yet because we're so early in the course, but I'm just so interested in what the next thing is, and mm-hmm. not trying to redo the thing from 20 years ago, which is what they've done here.
Yeah, and I think you're right that we're going to kind of, by, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, who knows how many movies in, but we're going to realize maybe what they're doing instead of those things. I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you want to mention some characters and moments. Let's talk about the principals here. The principal, not the principal. We can talk about her too.
We will talk about her, because Sarah Rue, I am disappointed in you.
What do you know Sarah Rue from?
Oh my gosh, everything. Popular, way back in the day. Mm-hmm. I also know her from a publicized weight loss journey. Is the other reason I know. That was, she was in. So she sort of played for, back in the day for a while, some like overweight sidekick kind of friends or parts, if you will, and then went through a weight loss of in real life, and she's guested on a ton of things.
Gotcha.
From like the 90s and 2000s, right? So she had a prominent Big Bang Theory arc. She was on in Psych. She's been on Drunk History. She's been on Bones, like all that kind of stuff. But I would say Popular is where I became aware of her. I like her. I think she's great. Oh, Can't Hardly Wait. Also, huge teen movie.
She's in that?
She is. Everyone is, though. Jason Segel is in that, and you don't know it unless you pause on the frame he's in. But so she was in the world, is what I'm trying to say, of that time period.
Mm.
And now she's in this. And there are aspects I love, right? There are aspects of her character. I love that she normalizes sexuality as part of being a woman, part of being an adult. I think that's great. I think they take it in a direction that's really predictable. And you know what I mean? Like, I think this is my summation. For every step they take forward, they then go back to the lowest common denominator. Yeah. So it's like she's sex positive, and she's pleasure forward, and this, and also is like super slutty, and also inappropriate at work, right? She wouldn't have you don't have to put those together. No. You don't have to have her taking cleavage selfies and then like she appeared to take a picture like that you couldn't see under the desk. And what was the line? She said she's had a hard life or something. Like, it made me laugh.
Yeah.
But not proudly. But that's they take a step and then they just tear it down themselves. So that's my rant on the principal. I think she made choices. One of them was to be in this movie, and I hope she feels good about it. I think the deal she was handed was pretty poor.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with that. And I definitely will blame adults more than the young people in the film, for taking this role and deciding to do this. So Madison Pettis plays Annie. She's our lead. I mean, she's a child actor. She was in a movie with The Rock, The Game Plan, and a bunch of like Disney stuff. Liz Broadway is Stephanie Stifler, who
Stifler's cousin.
There's a Stifler in all the films, whether they're cousins or brothers or whatever.
Yes,
the Stiflers.
There's always a Stifler, which was another thing that I don't know how the gender swap did this, but in some of not the Netflix, but I think maybe the IMDb or some summary I read was all about her. It was
really
because it's this Stifler, right? Because the Stifler is the connective tissue, if you will, from the one movies to the next. But to me, Annie is the primary character of the foursome, because that's who you meet first and that's who you're invested in.
And she ends up with the guy they're all in love with.
With the guy, yes. Who I called the feminist sex angel is what I called him. Not because that's what I thought he was, but that's because that's how I felt like the men who wrote this movie wrote that character. Of like, they all need something. They all need something different, which again, that's a premise I like, right? They're not all just trying to get laid. They all have a specific goal, and they are, they banded together to help each other grow. And the way they do that is by all meeting the same hot guy. Like, what, you know what I mean? It's just like, again, the more I'm describing it, the more this movie is blue balls, really, for me.
Yeah,
right? Because they get me going, and then they just drop off.
Because they took, again, if you wanted to do this with American Pie, then just start from scratch with the script. Don't take a script you already had that was just going to be like the 6th, 7th, 8th, I don't even remember, in this franchise, and then be like, let's make the ladies do these things. It just looks it's so silly. So Liz Broadway plays Stephanie Stifler. She apparently is someone who, I don't know, let's look out for her. She signed on for a spin-off series of The Boys as one of the leads there. So we'll look out for her.
She was great. And I mean, they're all stunning women, all of them. I enjoyed particularly these two that you've mentioned, Madison and Liz. I think are the strongest actors of the foursome.
Oh my God.
I don't know. How do you feel?
I agree. One of my notes was like, And initially, even in that first run, I wanted to hate Stephanie Stifler and this whole idea so bad. And at the beginning, I'm like, whatever. Towards the end, I'm like super invested in her acting, and it was like one of the weird,
She's great.
the weird things about this movie. She is.
She's in a different movie.
Bravo for our two, I guess, Madison Pettis and Liz Broadway specifically, because again, I was intrigued by their performances.
I cared.
And I kept, whenever she was on screen, especially towards the end, I'm like, I was interested. So again, little golf clap there.
Great work, ladies, for getting through that muck.
So Piper Curda played Kayla, who was, she was not a fan.
Sorry, this is not a visual medium, but I did a little no shake of my head there. Unfortunately for both, I didn't believe her. I'm sorry to say that. Here's another one, right? When we meet this character, she has a very sexually fulfilling relationship with this guy. You know, she says we just keep getting better. Like, they have great sex. That's awesome. And the way that she's set up is that was what is primarily important to her in this relationship. She's not interested in some of the touchy-feely, like, emotional parts. It's what was explained to me. And then, like, it's so contrived. So she's not going to tell him that she loves him. She's not there for the feelings of it. But she's this crazy, jealous person. And that's why they break up. And then in the end, no, she wants to get back together with him because just the sex alone is not what she wanted. What? So they make her this a different kind of. I don't know that teen character very well. You know, I don't know that sexually confident high school student. And then in the end, no, she just wants her boyfriend to love her.
This was the character to me that was just the most of, like, probably written as a dude, and they just changed the least. And again, I'm not even saying like a realistic dude, but I'm saying like an American Pie third or fourth friend who's
Absolutely.
like, oh, my girlfriend's all over me. You know, I just want her for the sex. And then, I really like her in the end. Again, I'm not saying that's a good story as a guy either, but
it makes sense in that when you say it's gender swapped, of like, oh, that's why they did that to her, because that was what was on the page already.
So I'm not going to blame Piper Curda necessarily for that.
I don't blame her.
That was a character too. Like, again, I could imagine the director saying, play it like this. And the way she's playing it, too, is so, like, bro-ish. And it's just, yeah, exactly, broad and, like, okay, yeah. So I'm with you on that one. And the fourth in our little tandem here.
Quartet.
The quartet, the rules, folks, is Natasha Beanham. If I'm mispronouncing that, Natasha, I apologize. She played Michelle. What do you think of the Michelle character?
Again, it became clear very quickly that it was all put together by dudes. I liked the idea that she is attracted to confidence, that she's self-sufficient. Okay, again, she masturbates, she uses vibrators, which again, you don't see in a lot of movies about anybody, but you know, in a lot of characters that are strong in that way. And yet you look in the drawer, because they show like this drawer full of sex toys, and they're all basically the same.
Yeah, that is true.
So it's like, why do you have 7 of the same vibrator? Also, how are you, like, that's expensive, that's not stored properly. I had all kinds of issues. Because I was like, that's not clean. So I liked that she was like smart and preppy and sexual. Great, because there's not a lot of that around. But then the way they did it, so if she was more attracted to the principal than the principal's son or that other guy, well, then make that a thing, right? Why did she also end up with a human man? Like, that didn't seem to be anything what she wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement there.
She at least has like the arc of, she did try to change herself, which included like running away from her best friend to chase the guy to get to him first. I mean, it just, the things that they made these ladies do after establishing their characters is just mind-boggling. If I could have a conversation with them of like, no, really, how confusing was it to try to figure out how to play this? I would love to. So I'm not blaming her. I love the idea of her character. I don't like what they they did to her. What did you think?
I mean, I know there's this thing in movies that people have talked about, like when a guy masturbates, it's funny, and it's not necessarily funny, but like it's more like this. And when a woman masturbates, it's sensual, and I was happy originally. Maybe I'll use your blue balls word originally, that this was something that they were like, oh, okay, like whatever. They're normalizing this for her.
Really normalize pleasure, please.
And then, like you said, it became this interesting story, and she ended up with that dude, whatever. I'm not whatevering your point, but I'm saying I wasn't surprised by it is more what I'm saying.
Right.
But this is one thing too on the second watch where I'm like, what was the gender swap here? I'm not sure. I don't know if this character like had a guy version, if you will. I just think it's a poorly written female character, if that makes sense. I think they had let's make her smart and and all
driven.
These things, driven and that, and she really admires the principal, which is all great. But then in the end of the day, it doesn't really add up to much. One thing that, again, I'll use the word token, but it's here and I want to bring it up. Definitely probably the most diverse American Pie film in regards to our principals. So I guess I'll give them credit for that. We don't really see that represented in any kind of way. Like if I closed my eyes, it does. Right. It's just like another American Pie film. So, again, I'm not making a statement here or there about it. I'm glad that they cast some people of color, and I'm glad that there's diversity in this film. I also don't want to give them brownie points just for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, just because you have one character that would be described as plus size doesn't mean that you've done your job that
you solved it, American Pie people.
You solved it. Yeah. The guy, whose I'm sorry, name I don't know.
Grant, Darren Barnett.
I loved him in Never Have I Ever.
Okay, I was going to ask, because that's like the one other thing he's done.
Yes, and to contrast, like that's a comedy about, well, there's more than that, but a comedy about a diverse group of female friends in high school, and their various hijinks, and they're real characters. They don't sort of double back on their own, I don't know, points of view. And he starts out in that very much as just like eye candy boy, and then, develops into a real character. And he's definitely got that down. He's a very conventionally attractive young man. And I think so far has the chops to back it up. So I'm curious to see, like, I kind of want to fast forward 5 years and then see him in something.
When people get these Netflix, I don't know if they're contracts or just like Netflix likes them, they end up being in a bunch of stuff. So I think he's got enough chops. He's a good looking guy, as you said. I think he's going to be in something that probably we're going to talk about on this show at some point. We're going to be like,
sure,
thank you, for being in something else. He's got what's it called? Noah Centineo, who is in All the Boys movies. He briefly became the internet's boyfriend, right? Like, he is internet boyfriend potential here.
Absolutely.
Not from this movie.
No, but also because he didn't get to do, he was this weird feminist sex angel. And I was glad. This movie also confused me because, like, we have that afternoon party at the principal's house in the middle of the movie where then they all figure out, I don't like it when best friends meet the same person and then that's the shtick, because like if they're really your best friend, you would have known that they met the new guy, Grant. Like, but so when he addressed all four of them and was like, no, I invited each of you because I'm new here and you're interesting people, and for one reason or another you're all here. Like, that was maybe the only kind of, he just didn't get to do anything interesting, was all I'm not saying very well, but trying to say, is that character, as much as the female leads, I think, what did he get to do in that movie?
Well, I think, again, two wrongs don't make a right, but like, let's look at like if this was that dude-centric American Pie film and this was just the young woman they were pursuing, right?
Right.
We would probably say the same thing about that character. And again, like I said, two wrongs don't make a right, but I just think it comes from there. Maybe they tried to inch it up a little and change him a little bit from that character who in probably 2010 was just played by like an attractive 25-year-old who they were all into. So again, I'm with you with that. Like, and I don't know, but I'm not blaming Darren Barnett for that. And again, I look forward to seeing him in something else.
Yeah, I do. I really do.
I'm just gonna run quickly through the cast because I can't believe we're like an hour talking already.
I know we
Girls
can't.
Films. But
we can't give them more of our lives than they've already taken.
You mentioned Sarah Rue already. Just people I took notes on. Zane Emery played Jason. Cameron Engels played Tim. But the one I really took a note on was Zachary Gordon, who played Emmett, who was the one that Stephanie Stifler ended up with. He's from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series, so child actor as well. What do you think of him?
I thought he was a great 2020 version of Justin Long.
My exact note. That's why I laugh.
Oh, really?
Right?
Oh, funny.
He's a Justin Long clone
Justin
from
Long.
that era, which is amazing.
Yes. It gives us that, like, the band camp through line, right? There was, of course, the band camp entire film, but also just like band camp being a thing and being a sexual thing in the American Pie universe. I thought again, he didn't get to do a lot. I've seen the movie where he helps her to get another guy, right? I've seen that in the 80s and the 90s. So I don't think he was given anything innovative to do. And I get, if you became famous with Diary of a Wimpy Kid, that maybe an American Pie movie is a great way to pivot to be in adult movies without, I don't mean porn.
Yes. Like, I saw your air
to take on adult roles.
Didn't. Yes.
He's going quotes. Kind of that. I think of it with, every little young pop starlet like has that moment when they sort of switch and like, ooh, suddenly everyone says they're too sexy.
Yeah, Iceland.
Right, but they're just growing up.
Look up the IMDb of almost everyone in this film and like all the teens, and they were all in Disney stuff. So you hit the nail on the head there.
But no, I liked him. It's probably one of the superlatives later. I would have enjoyed more Emmett, and I would have enjoyed more of Emmett and Grant because we're told that they're best friends or that they're very close.
Ooh.
What?
I was saying ooh because there's continuity issues with that. And again, we're not
so much. Right? That's why we haven't. Here's why I'm not worried, because we're not actually going to talk about the plot because it makes no sense. I would much rather talk about like what we're doing. So yeah, I'm not worried we'll be on forever because the plot is like, who cares? It doesn't matter. It was not well written or executed.
Emmett and Grant are supposed to be very good friends, borderline best friends who went to camp together, went to band camp together, like you said, the through line.
For 10 years, which is like, who goes to band camp for 10 years?
Yes. But honestly, I'm okay with that line because in the American Pie universe, as you coined it, band camp is such a big deal that maybe it's for 10 years, who knows. But there are moments in the movie where Grant is like, I have no friends here. I'm all alone. And then there are moments in the movie, we're best friends. We're so close. And it's true because he knows a lot about him. And you're like, wait, what? Because the other scene here, you didn't even know this guy. You're new. You said you knew nobody. And then the next scene is like, yeah, we're bros. How could you betray me? We're best friends. Like, dude. But yeah, there's a lot of that here. That just happened to be the one that came up now.
Yeah, there is a lot. Yeah, we could take any example for continuity, for sure.
So when I go through the IMDb, there are some people here that I'm like, what? Danny Trejo plays a janitor who almost has no lines. What was up with this?
I mean, again, I don't begrudge Danny Trejo a paycheck. Go get it, buddy. I think it was, clearly stunt casting, but like to what end? Maybe Danny Trejo has a Netflix deal too. I was baffled. I don't understand that as a stunt casting unless Danny Trejo has been in other of the straight to streaming, which I don't know. But like, why was that a stunt for this film? I feel like somebody from the original cast would have been a fun silent janitor, but it didn't seem to fit with. What did that have to do with the girls' rules?
No, it didn't have anything to do with that. And oh man, and look, I get it. I get the profession, but like, if you're going to do stunt casting, can you please not have a Latin person play a janitor? That would be nice. Thank you.
Oh, that's a really good point as well.
It's so unnecessary. But again, Danny Trejo, earn your money. I'm not blaming you. Another cameo, if you will, was Barry Bostwick, of course, from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes.
Other stuff, he played Peepaw, the grandpa at the beginning, which, sure.
Yes, who had like vomit on his.
Yeah.
All of that was upsetting. You know, that reminds me of another running gag. I'm using air quotes.
Was that there were a number of pies in the movie.
Oh yeah,
I don't
was
remember
bring it
that
up.
from Bandcamp. So I wonder if that's part of the reboot of the previous straight to video one. Because I don't remember that from Bandcamp, but could be wrong.
It's just like they need to tell you, hey guys, remember American Pie from 1999? This is part of that. There's a Stifler and there's pies, and it's like, all right, come on, we get it.
Yeah, well, and it's just because I'm so sorry to bring it up, but like the origin of the pie was in a conversation equating it to vagina, which is not, they didn't make that up, right? That's a euphemism. But so in the girls' rules, is there lots of pie because there's lots of vagina, or are they pretending that that's no longer the reference that they're making?
They should have, maybe had another kind of dessert. I'm not sure, but who knows? Who knows?
American baklava.
Yeah, American baklava, American strudel. Who knows? Okay, so I do have to ask you a question about this, because there's another famous person listed in the IMDb that I don't remember seeing in this movie. It says there's an uncredited performance from Danny DeVito. Did you see Danny DeVito here? Did I miss that?
No.
It says tea drinker. That's what he's uncredited as.
I know, I wasn't aware of that. That's very strange, and it doesn't seem like Danny DeVito would do that. Like, why would Danny DeVito do that?
Remember in the early days of Wikipedia, and I know now too, but like especially the early days when like your teacher would be like, "Don't use Wikipedia. That's like wrong information." I'm sensing there was like a false IMDb thing happening with Danny DeVito and the uncredited thing. I think someone just put it in, and no one cares about this movie, so no one checked him on it.
Sure.
So that's my guess. Okay, finally we're here, and as you said, we're not gonna go scene by scene, plot by plot point here, because we've kind of hit home our points more or less.
Yeah.
So, Aislinn, what were some moments in the movie, dare I say, you liked or disliked, or anything here that really you wanted to discuss?
I just think that the piece that I thought was innovative, again, until the execution, was the idea of the pact.
Guys, we're all lacking something in the romance area, but I feel like we gotta figure this out, like it's our senior year.
What do you mean?
Goal setting.
Okay, but what goals?
Oh, for you? You need a guy who appreciates your sense of humor and doesn't take things so personally.
Maybe someone who's less emotional.
Yeah, like someone like way less woke. Not a guy who wants to make sweet love. You need a guy who wants, you know?
Oh my God, I do need someone who wants to.
Here you go.
Okay, my turn, do me.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty simple. You need someone smart.
Yeah, you need someone who understands you, with like social consciousness, but also like integrity.
Yeah, like someone a little kinky.
I like it. Okay, what about Steph?
Me? Oh, I am so good.
Oh, sweetie, sorry, but you need some serious work.
Excuse me? What exactly do I need?
Annie, take it.
A nice guy. So someone who wants to be around you and buys thoughtful presents and asks about your day.
Okay. What about Annie?
To have sex with the man I love.
Guys, these goals are totally attainable.
But we need a deadline.
Homecoming, about a month away, and it has the perfect theme. Your lack of school spirit is truly disheartening. Ladies, come on, it's a morph dance. Prom spelled backwards, we switch all the conventions, and most importantly, girls ask guys.
Okay. Rule 1, set a goal to fix our romantic lives.
Rule number 2, we support our fellow women.
3, we are all accountability partners, and we won't let each other get away with our usual.
Yes.
And rule 4, deadline is homecoming.
The morph dance.
Wait, but I don't like that it's rules. Makes it sound like a competition.
Well, everything is a competition.
It's not, though. It's a pact, so.
Ooh, a pact.
Well, ladies, please raise your glasses. The girls' rules.
Yes!
Yes.
Oh. We have a pact!
I liked that as opposed to like a bet or a contest. I liked that their rules included that they are best friends, included accountability in terms of helping them to reach their goals. Like that stuff was all positive. It's just the way it was executed, I think, doesn't live up to that. And also doesn't, like, the film, the rules themselves and like the pact they have don't match with the American Pie universe kind of thing, right? I think you could take that nugget of like, there's 4 young, confident, 4 best friends that have different goals for their social lives or their sex lives or whatever, and they're going to help each other accomplish them. That sounds great, but that is not the movie I watched.
No, it's not. So it's called Girls' Rules for that reason, and you know, there's a through line in a lot of American Pie films of a pact, of a dare, or whatever it is. The first one was like, we're all gonna have sex before we graduate. Pretty simple. I'm not sure about the other ones. I know they exist, but the rules here are, and I wrote them down. Rule one. And there's a big moment where they're around a fire after, I don't know, hanging out by a lake without parents, whatever.
And they all have individual bottles of champagne.
Yes. I'm glad you noticed that. I did as well. I'm like, whoa.
They must have a profound, vibrator and champagne budget in their households because spendy.
I took it as like, in the original script, it said, like, all the guys have a beer. And then, like, the dudes were like, what do ladies drink? Oh, they love champagne. Get them all a bottle of champagne. That makes sense.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, nothing a 17-year-old loves more than bubbly wine.
Okay, so here are the rules. Rule 1.
Okay.
Set a goal to fix their romantic lives. Annie.
She wants to lose her virginity with the person she loves.
Yes. Annie needs to have sex with the man she loves. Stephanie Stifler needs to meet a nice guy. Michelle needs to find someone smart? Is that what it is?
I see. I was not clear about that.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Like, it didn't really match.
Kayla, her thing was she needs to find someone who appreciates her sense of humor / she likes to fuck and she needs someone who likes to fuck. Their words. So...
Right, but then that's not what her character wants in the end. So we've already said it. I'm just repeating myself now.
Oh, all good. You're just passionate about the subject.
I'm just so frustrated because I just said that I like the idea of the pact, not their individual goals, but like the idea of that as what hangs the movie together. It has promise. It's just not followed through.
And Aislinn, if I had a bell like the Contenders did, and I could ring a bell, I would ring bells when there's like high school tropes, like no, don't do that, and not even necessarily as bad, but like any pact or goal setting thing like this in a high school film is going to result in one character's feelings getting hurt. So just FYI, if you're in a high school film, if you're in that universe, don't make a pact. Someone's feelings are going to get hurt.
Good to know.
So I did have a couple other questions just about things that happen in the film that I'm just curious your thoughts on. Love proms, another maybe bell ring, high school trope, prom,
sure,
things ending at proms. But this is a homecoming morp, which is the opposite of a prom. They're supposed to flip everything on its side, just like this gender swap we're having here.
Right, so girls ask boys, again, in this universe where there are only girls and boys and
straight peoples.
And straight peoples, and so it's swapped, meaning that there are existing rules. So so I can see where dude bro, in the writer's room would say, oh, but we flipped it. But even just in saying it's flipped, you're reinforcing that it's the male role.
Yep.
Right? That doesn't subvert anything. It just reinforces the existing essentialist gender bullshit.
Yep. There's no other way to put it. You're right. And then the morp, though, is a pajama party. We get to see it later. I guess what was your ideas about that, in a sense? The just proms and morps and being the end goal ending there. And then just overall the aesthetic of it. Because I always like to ask my guest what they think of the prom or the dance or the whatever it is.
Oh, sure. I mean, you are talking to a 4-time prom goer. I went all 4 years of high school.
Nice.
At the time, that seemed like an accomplishment. At our school, you had to be a junior or senior or date of a junior or senior to go.
Same with mine. That's why I was like impressive.
Yes. So my first 2 years, I had boyfriends that were juniors. Well, each time my date was a junior, which is meaningless, but sort of funny to me. So the first 2 years, they were boyfriends. And then and different people. And then the second 2 years, they were gay best friends and also different people. So that was my journey.
You say
definitely had more fun at the second 2.
You say it's not interesting, but this is High School Slumber Party. I am incredibly interested in this. That's 4 years, 4 different people, and all juniors. That's a stat I've never heard of. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Super weird. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I was nominated for prom queen the third time, because it's really the juniors dance. So only juniors need to apply. And that was with my friend Tyler, and he and I were sort of the alternative vote.
Nice.
Which that's probably what I take most pride in. Did not win, of course. I love getting dressed up. I love a chance to sort of celebrate and the nostalgia. And so, like, you know, I don't think it has to be a prom or even necessarily a dance, but like one of those like quintessential high school moments. I'm all here for. I love that stuff. So I think that's fun. Pajamas frightens me because I just feel like that's a sort of an excuse to be half dressed. You know, whether it's Annie, who's gorgeous, like that's a short nightie she has on. That's a short lacy nightie. That's a little scary. I just think of like, I don't know. You can't really dance in it. And then I would just be afraid that all the boys would have like pajama pants on and that it would just be like visible boner city through the whole thing. So that's what I was thinking about because I'm terrible when I heard that it was a pajama dance. What are your thoughts on a pajama dance?
As you can only imagine, I've covered a lot of proms on here and a lot of dances.
Yes, absolutely.
This is the first like pajama one that I have actually seen in a film, so I guess kudos to them. I just found it weird that like, oh, we're turning prom upside down and it's a morp, and the opposite of prom are pajamas. Like, really? I think it should just be like casual then, or like, you know, wear muddy jeans or something. I'm not saying I agree with that theme, but like it's definitely not the opposite of prom. I don't know. Again, I like dancing in movies. I like a good prom scene. Not that this was like good or bad. This was interesting, right? Because when we get to it, the big moment is they have this fight at this party. I guess it's at Stephanie Stifler's house. When I say they, I'm going to call Annie the lead. Annie and Grant, it seems like they're going to be together, and then this is the whole, oh, I was a bet kind of moment.
The shitty boyfriend ruins it, which also I didn't think was necessary.
This guy, again, typical shitty boyfriend. Also, you want another bell ring? I'll give you one. Any high school character who dates a character in college never ends well in the movie. It's so
your heart's going to get broken, and he's definitely cheating on you at college, is what we've learned.
Yes, exactly. Do not visit him. Oh, you should visit him at school to catch him, but do not visit him at school and expect good things to happen. No. We've seen it.
Do not sneak up on a college freshman in his dorm room. That's what I've learned.
Another thing from this movie, please, if you are a parent of a teenager, and this is like a PSA out there, please knock and then wait for them to be like, come in.
Yes.
Just for your own good, okay?
Yeah, when the parents and grandparents were like so upset at the very beginning, I was like, you did this. You did this by walking in with FaceTime on into your son's room. This is your fault. You've created this.
Just wait.
Who's Jason?
Jason's your grandson, honey.
What channel is this?
Oh, what is that? What? Sure, okay, yeah.
Honey, we have a surprise for you. Jason?
Girls.
And it happens a couple other times too, because it happens with when.
I mean, I think it happens because it happens in the first one, right?
Yes,
but again, that was 20 years ago.
Oh man! You would think they would have learned the lessons of American Pie from
Absolutely.
American Pie.
They don't. it's like kind of you mentioned Scream, which plays on like horror tropes. You'd think similarly here they've done so much in this universe that the characters should know better.
Absolutely.
And alas.
Oh, so sorry. All I was mentioning though was from the party. It looks like, oh no, Annie and Grant might not get together. Everyone else has found their man.
Right.
Stephanie Stifler's found the dude.
Everyone else has settled for someone else.
Yes. Stephanie Stifler's found new Justin Long, and he's been helping her the whole movie, and it turns out like he was the nice guy. He bought her the lipstick case.
And they said when they were creating the rules that someone who buys you presents, a nice guy who buys you presents.
And that literally was what he was. So whatever. Yeah. I mean, you know what though? They were the romance that I was most interested in for some reason.
And then I remembered I'd seen it in like 10 Things I Hate About You.
For sure. For sure. And for me, I see a lot of tropes. Do the tropes right, and I'm going to be with it. Do them, too cliche and repeated, I'm not going to be with it. I was kind of on the fence about them. The rest of them, though, like Kayla and her ex-boyfriend, I still don't get why they got back together.
I don't either.
Michelle and I forgot the dude's name who works with her. Whatever. I don't know. They both like JFK.
The principal's assistant?
Yes.
Who's a student?
Yes. Also, no other teachers really in this school. No other administration. Just this principal. And
nope.
Everyone's just running.
Just a horny principal and her assistant who does a terrible JFK impression.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
And yet that is what gets him the girl. So strange.
But Annie, you think she's going to end up with Grant, and then suddenly crappy ex-boyfriend from college decides to really go out of his way and ruin Annie's life, which again, I don't understand what his motivation is. Like, I know he's mad, but
right.
He seemed to be doing fine, quote unquote, in college, meeting other people.
Exactly.
Why is he rehashing this? Like, a problem was essentially solved.
Because he's an entitled dude. So, like, that's probably the most true to life piece of it.
Fair. So he shows up at this party and he's like, hey, listen, this is what's going on to the guy. Like, it was the whole she's all that, I was a bet kind of moment. Cry.
Classic.
Bell ring. And then we have our prom scene, and you think it's just like everyone's just, we're all happy with our guys, and we know you didn't get your guy, but you're going to have a good time. But boom, her friends are secretly going behind her back a little bit and setting up this beautiful, beautiful prom moment. And I know I did this like long setup that was unnecessary, but there's a couple things I want to mention for this setup. So yeah, Annie's dad and the principal,
oh my god,
are fuck buddies, as they call it.
Disgusting.
It's very weird. Let them do them, whatever. But
disgusting. Sorry, just to be clear, they are welcome to get theirs, but that like they have a conversation with Annie while like he is on top of her. You know what I mean? In the living room, like they're so public with the young people. That's what made me uncomfortable.
And maybe that goes back to the whole Stifler's mom thing and stuff. But
sure, that could be.
But you're right. Like, it's a little bit like too much at certain times.
It's just inappropriate. Again, yeah,
like you said, around young people, especially. She's someone of authority. The principal.
She's the principal. Boundaries.
Exactly.
Boundaries.
Exactly. But it looks like the guy, the dad, is picking up the principal to go to prom because Grant has decided he's not going to Morp. Sorry, not prom, Morp. And he puts the old say anything trope of the boombox. I have to mention it, say anything trope of the boombox.
Of course.
But the song playing is a crappy saxophone version, not of In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel, but of the song from the Breakfast Club, Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds.
Which made no sense.
Why are we combining two high school tropes here? Look, I love a little callback to the films I love, but don't put both in one thing and just be like, okay. Oh, I was offended.
Yeah, it's just sloppy.
And that was just like to coax him into going into the limo and having this like cute moment.
And then everyone at the prom.
Oh my God.
Suddenly we were in a horror movie.
Oh my God.
Because everyone turns on a weird lighter app on their phone and just walks close to Annie. that was the scary, like, just that scene alone with different music would have been a horror movie.
Absolutely. It was really freaky. And it was just
so weird.
all to set up this nice, cute, like, little dance moment where he comes and it's all like, yes, like they're actually together. And I'm like, ugh. And if you look at the actor's face when he's walking in, he doesn't look confident at all.
No, he's embarrassed. He's like, I am in pajamas. Everyone is looking at us. What is my face supposed to be?
Oh my goodness.
Cash that check is what that face should be.
Goodness. And of course, they can't end it there. They have to be like, this is an American Pie movie. Someone's got to lose their virginity. And whatever. You do you, characters or whatever. But like they set up a tent on the football field.
Yeah, not realistic. I'd be so worried someone would be like security would be there. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a place to be comfortable.
No, and they act like it's romantic. And if there was a payoff for this somewhere in the movie, like if she said, oh, I always dreamed of having sex on the 50-yard line for my first time or something like that, that would make more sense. But like, why set it up there with all those lights? Like, I don't know. Regardless, she's got her moment and the credits roll with this kind of prom dance off, which this time I watched through. There is a post credits scene. Island, did you see the post credits scene?
I did not. I thought the last shot, if you will, was the four of their faces having mediocre sex with boys. What was in the after credit shot?
It was not the JFK themed dildo, which I thought was going to be used in a different way, but no.
Well, yeah, she implied she was going to peg him, and then perhaps that was later, but all that I saw was them having penis and vagina sex.
Yeah, so that didn't really...
So I was disappointed, honestly.
That didn't really make sense. But regardless, no, there's a dance-off thing, and there's like, during the credits, and after this dance-off, it's the principal with the dad, and they're in that dungeon from earlier with the former principal.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And they're having a moment, and Danny Trejo walks in, and he just says, oh man, I'm gonna need a bigger mop, and that's how the movie ends. Like, come on! I was like, why? Why? Oh boy.
I forgot that's how we were introduced to Stephanie.
Yes.
I don't know if she is a dominatrix or was just playing the part of a dominatrix to then blackmail a pervy principal.
Yep.
Yeah, I would watch a movie about that character, like about Stephanie Stifler, if she was not connected to the American Pie franchise.
Which probably will go into some of our questions that we ask every time we do this here on High School Slumber Party AP. But Aislinn, was there anything else in the film that you really, really were burning inside to talk about?
I think we have rehashed it.
I love making history. Aislinn.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you, not only was this the most analytical podcast ever about American Pie Presents Girls Rules, but it's probably the longest podcast ever about American Pie Girls Rules. Look, somewhere, some bro has some like American Pie podcast, like our good friends Joey Lewandowski and Joe 2 have Too Fast, Too Forever, where they just watch all the films forever. Yeah. Someone has this podcast. I will guarantee they did not get as deep as we did today or go as long as we did.
Well, this is advanced placement.
Very true. Very true. So, it's in the title. You're getting what you're getting. So,
absolutely.
And I love it. So, my turn to be the asker, but we'll both be answering today. Awards and questions.
Sure.
My favorite part of every week. So, here we go. Aislinn, first. Who was this movie made for?
I mean, it feels like it was made for teens 20 years ago.
Great answer. I can't beat that. You're absolutely right. I was going to say the filmmakers because they clearly thought they were doing something good.
Excellent point. Yes. Both solid answers, I think.
Easy one here. Is this based on YA? No, but it is based on an existing franchise, so kind of in a sense, but not a YA novel.
It has a legacy for sure.
Yes. Did we see a dead teen or parent? We did not. We see a divorced parent on one side.
Right. We don't know where Annie's mom is or where Grant's dad is, but we don't get into it.
Yeah, so not really relevant. All right. Yeah. Aislinn, superlatives here. Most likely to succeed. Who won the movie?
God, that is tough.
Not me, I'll tell you that much.
I guess I would say Emmett. Because he was himself the whole time.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And like in the end, that like got him a goal of his, which it seemed as if he had some unrequited feelings for Stephanie Stifler. So yeah, I think Emmett did, but if I had to pick one of the foursome, I would say Stephanie Stifler. What do you think?
I said Stephanie Stifler, but Emmett's a great choice too. I'm glad we're kind of on the same page with that, because that means like, you know, these people did a good job. I'll put it that way.
Totally. Yeah, they made their characters compelling, for sure.
Okay, Wooderson Award. Is there a character here who you would have liked to see more of?
Oh gosh. I mean, again, I would say kind of Emmett, but I don't want to put anything else in this movie. So I would say if I had to have an answer, I would say Emmett, but I think 95 minutes was plenty for this one. So I don't know. What do you think?
I said Stephanie Stifler, and I said let's remove everyone else. Let's not make her a Stifler, and I want to see that story. So
totally.
That's also my Long Duck Dong Award for any character whose omission might make the film better. And I'm so sorry if any of you young cast members are listening today. Not that you did a bad job. It's not your fault. But yeah. I would eliminate everyone else and just craft a new story on this like different Stephanie character with Emmett and other things happening. And let's start from scratch is my point. Is there anyone you would pick for the Long Duck Dong Award, though?
I mean, you already mentioned it, that Danny Trejo as a janitor with no lines, I don't understand the purpose of, and I think is certainly it plays into a regressive stereotype for sure. So don't need that.
I agree. Extra credit assignment. This was the question you thankfully brought to High School Slumber Party AP, and I love. So if you could recommend a classic teen film to a character in this movie, who would you recommend it to? What would that film be? What's your answer?
I don't know if it's going to count as classic, but to me it is, because I saw it first in high school. So I have trouble with Kayla's character and kind of where she is and what she's about, because she seems to sort of flip-flop a little bit in terms of her goals and her agenda. And so I would like her to watch Girl Fight.
Ooh.
This Michelle Rodriguez early movie that she did, because I love that movie. And it doesn't do some of the things that this movie does, right? It doesn't have a makeover where she's wearing a dress and suddenly she's pretty, or it subverts some of those things, and that character is flawed, but is herself and also grows. And so I would just like Kayla to see that and maybe gain something from it.
That's a good one. So my pick was a movie we both mentioned here today, She's All That. I want all of them to watch it, because I want all of them to realize that when you make a pact, you hurt someone's feelings. So in a film.
Absolutely.
Also, just a little preview to see what that, and it might be this year, it might be 2022, but what that gender swap film is going to look like. Are we going to like it? Are we going to hate it? I don't know, but they need to do their homework ahead of time. So when that comes out, they'll know what they're talking about. That's my point.
That sounds like a great option.
All right. I'm very, very curious on this one. Our report card grades.